because it turns out that the scariest thing about working in a haunted house are the working conditions. Hello users of the internet and welcome to my YouTube channel. If you're one of my current 900 subscribers, then welcome back. And if you're not and you're one of my recent previous employers, I don't think you're gonna want to become one. Today I am back after a short hiatus to tell you a kind of horrific and traumatizing story time about my recent employment at a horror house. Look, for the purposes of anonymity, I'm not going to tell you which haunted house I was working at, but it was one that was open temporarily for an Easter-themed Sydney-based carnival sponsored by a certain Australian radio station. I'm not going to tell you which one. You're going to have to come to that conclusion somehow on your own. But let's just say that working there wasn't the best experience that I've ever had. I went in there and took a little bit of footage because, to be honest, originally I was just planning to make a video being like, tee-hee, spend a day working with me in a haunted house. I'm trying not to kill myself. Stay tuned. But now this video has become an account of a harrowing experience. This is essentially just me dealing with my PTSD. Therapy, if you will. These Spot the Difference games are getting harder and harder. So without further ado, let's get into it. This whole thing started because my friend actually forwarded me an email from a company saying that they were looking for people to work in a haunted house for a 12-day period, and I was like, you know what, that sounds cool. Emailed back, went in for an interview. Interview was incredibly brief. I basically just gave in my acting resume. They said, okay, we'll be in touch shortly. And then I got a text saying that I'd got the job and to show up the following day for training. Very brief, very quick, very random, but who was I to say no to a job opportunity? In these COVID times, beggars can't be choosers. Also, working in a haunted house sounds like a lot of fun. I have previously worked at Luna Park over their Halloween period as one of the scarers, and it's a good time. So I was keen to replicate that experience. Spoiler alert, things didn't go according to plan. So I came in the next day for training, which is honestly a strong word for it. We were just kind of walked through the house, given a mini pamphlet telling us not to touch any of the customers, and told to rock up 2 days later to get into costume and start scaring people. What position was I? I don't know. What costume would I be wearing? No idea. What does this job entail? What's the pay rate? When am I getting paid? Who am I to know? Actually, I'm the employee and well within my rights to know, but nevertheless, I assumed that I would know these things in due course and just showed up 2 days later for the actual job. I came in at 8 AM, got into costume, which consisted of this very t-shirt, pants, and an incredibly tight, incredibly hot rubber mask. For this first day, I was told that I was working in the swamp room, which meant that my job was crouching down, popping up, spraying people with a water gun, and popping back down. And that my shift was going to last from 9 AM until 10 PM. It sounds easy enough, but when you're doing this for 13 hours straight, in a hot mask, in a smoky room where you can't see or breathe, let's just say it's not the easiest job in the world. 2 hours in, I was honestly ready to call it quits. I came out of my break, called my parents. I was like, I can't do this anymore. This is the first day of 12 and this is hell. But then after my half-hour break, decided to be a trooper, go back in, and just kind of sucked it up. I felt completely unprepared, and also very much like the working conditions were pretty inhumane. A 13-hour day is kind of insane, especially when you're spending it in a restrictive costume in a dark, smoky room where all of your senses are inhibited, having to deal with customers at their absolute worst state. But I also knew that I wouldn't be in this room every day, so decided to stick it out at least for the first day. Some of the different roles included standing out the front of the house in a Freddy Krueger mask and taking photos with people before they came in, standing in a wooden drop box, pulling a lever and jumping out of a photo frame to scare people, standing in a room full of fake clowns and again popping out and catching people off guard, banging a chain against a barrel, as well as the aforementioned swamp room. I found myself floating between these jobs, and as the days went on, it did get easier, in that my standards lowered and I just got used to the inhumane conditions. The thing with working in a horror house is that you kind of see people at their absolute worst. Customers are either incredibly scared and running away from you, which is fine, I would be exactly the same, or you see people come in drunk and incredibly defensive.
Where some cunt pops out at me, they're gonna fucking die.
Like, to be verbally abused and ridiculed was just the the norm. I came to expect that, and any insults just kind of washed over me. But it was the physical abuse that started to become problematic for me and everyone else who worked there. Groups of boys would come in on the attack and actively try and hurt us. For instance, in response to me jumping out and scaring them, aka my job description, they would try and punch me in the face. A girl was choked, everyone started getting rashes and skin conditions from the costumes that were not washed and also shared amongst the entire cast. It was a massive mental and physical drain, and considering we were rostered on every day and very, very overworked, everyone started getting sick, so calling in and asking for days off. None of us had any time to participate as a human in society, which feels very, very illegal. The management team did absolutely nothing when we were telling them that we were being punched and hit and strangled and abused. One night I was sprayed with a fire extinguisher, was allowed 5 minutes to recover, and then told to go back in the room like nothing had happened while I was choking on the toxic fumes. None of us signed a contract. Some people got an email telling them their pay rate. I never received any email correspondence. So issues started slowly cropping up, and people definitely began to drop off. People weren't only calling in sick, but were also calling in to quit. One day there were 3 of us. Imagine going through a massive mansion and being scared by 3 people. On one day, the person who was Freddy Krueger out the front of the house started feeling really sick because their mask was so tight that it was pinching a nerve in their neck and they almost passed out. So they were taken out of the house and I was asked to replace them. And this one guy who floated around quite a bit, I honestly don't know what his role was. Apparently he used to work as a clown in the house back in the day, but now is a maintenance guy / guy who tells everyone what to do for some reason. And he asked me to fill in as Freddy out the front and wear his mask. I wasn't really comfortable with sharing this mask because A, I mean it's unhygienic in general, especially in a COVID-fueled world. But B, said mask literally pinched one of his nerves and made him feel so sick that he could no longer work. So I didn't really want to subject myself to that same pain. Because I'm not really a fan of conflict, I was trying to be as polite as possible and was like, very happy to go out the front. I did notice the other day that someone who was playing Freddy out the front was actually wearing the same mask I was, so I think that this one should be fine. And then ex-clown maintenance guy said no, the only reason that she was wearing that mask out the front was because the original Freddy mask caused her to break out in a horrible skin condition and she had to use that one, which again didn't make that Freddy mask seem any more appealing. And then I said that I was actually also getting a neck rash from one of the full coverage masks, so would really prefer to stick with this one. And then he popped off and said, if you don't want to wear it, just say no, you're wasting my time. And I said, okay, great, that's what I've been trying to do. No, I will not wear it. There were so many cons that really just kept building up. But nevertheless, I finally made it to the last day. However, this final day is when things really got messy. If you thought that I had already spilled the tea, strap yourselves in because we haven't even started. I'm gonna tell you this mini story before I get into the tea, which may seem irrelevant right now, but trust me, it's gonna come right back around later. Towards the beginning of the day, the girl who was working at the front of the house, who I'd said got that skin condition from the original Freddy mask, came up to me and said, hey, just wondering if I could borrow your mask because I've had such an adverse reaction to this mask and maybe you can try and find something else. And I was like, absolutely, of course, take mine, I'll find a substitute, don't worry. So I went to the table, picked up the only mask that was there, which wasn't as much of a full coverage mask as the other ones, but it still looked pretty scary from the front. And if I'm popping out and scaring people, this mask definitely does the job. I was in the clown room on this final day, so got into position, hid behind my fake clowns, and got to work pronto. Now everyone's favorite ex-clown maintenance guy came up to me while I was scaring and wanted to have a chat. And because it is insanely loud in there, I had to fully stop what I was doing, take off my mask to listen to him, remove my earplugs, and focus all of my attention on him because clearly what he wanted to say seemed important. He told me that apparently 2 people had come through the house and asked for a refund at the end because they weren't scared enough. And the way he said it just felt very judgy and kind of directed at me. I know that he used to play the clown, so had a special place in his heart for the role, and I think was perhaps a bit too close to the character to be objective. And I said, okay, sure, just to let you know, I have been jumping out and scaring every customer that's come past. And then he pointed at 2 customers that walked past while he was talking to me in the middle of my shift and said, except those ones. Like, what? If you want to disrupt my shift and talk to me, you can't have your cake and eat it too. What am I supposed to do? If it were up to me, I wouldn't be talking to you right now and I would continue doing my job. Needless to say, I was very annoyed and very frustrated and honestly upset. A little part of me was like, should I walk out? It's the last day. But I was like, no, I can't let the team down. Only 11 more hours to go. I went on my break, took a breather, came back, and then was confronted once again. X-Clown came around, came into the box where I was hiding to scare, and asked me to follow him out of the house. When we were outside, he told me that he was actually going to remove me from the horror house and move me to another section, where instead of working as a scare actor like I was hired to, I would now be collecting tickets from people who wanted to try and kick a soccer ball into a net to win a stuffed animal. Literally slap a games t-shirt on me and call this Adventureland. I was confused for a number of reasons. I mean, A, this is the last day of the job, so why move me to a different job? B, why is the horror house company also in charge of the games section? And C, why just me? Why was I the only one asked to completely change my job description in the last few hours in this role? But everyone else was good to chill. I ended up asking none of the above and instead just went with a general, why is that? To which I got the response, we had to move someone and I didn't want to move anyone else because they were all working harder than you. I was taken aback, to say the least. Again, for a number of reasons. A, how could you possibly know that? You come into the house once every 2 hours to fix one of the many faults in this crumbling house, and then you leave. B, this is the last day. Every single person is exhausted from working 13-hour days for the past 11 days, so has a right to not be on their A game. And perhaps most importantly, C, it's just not true. I mean, I can't speak for the work that other people were doing. I'm sure that they were killing it, but I made a point of jumping out and scaring every person to the best of my ability every time they walked past. I don't understand how I could have scared people harder than I already was. There is nothing more that I could have been physically doing or giving to this job. And even though, like I said, I normally want to be pretty chill and definitely not want to be confrontational, I did say this. I was like, look, I've been working hard and jumping out and scaring every single customer. Is there anything else that I can be doing that I'm not currently doing? And he said, when I came inside your box, you were drinking water. To which I said, well, I've just come back from break, so was just taking a drink before I started my shift again. But honestly, I didn't need to defend myself from that comment. Is he insinuating that we're expected to work 13 hours straight without stopping for a water break? Because that is 10 times worse than any prison I've ever heard of. I would say it's straight up illegal, but let's face it, everything about this entire job is against the law. He then went on to say that I was difficult and pointed to the mask situation from the other day as evidence. And I pointed out that on that day he told me that I was being too nice and beating around the bush and to say no to save him time if I didn't want to do something. And that was what I was trying to do today. Because I didn't want to be moved to the customer service soccer game that was not remotely similar to what I was hired to do. Whatever that is. Which honestly, under other circumstances, I would have been down to do. But after being accused of slacking off, I wasn't really feeling amenable and self-sacrificing and honestly down to be taken advantage of. He then just kind of continued his tirade against me and told me that today I was wearing the wrong mask, which means that I was either lazy or stubborn. To be fair, he did say or. At least I wasn't accused of both. A silver lining. And then obviously I explained that the only reason I was even wearing this other mask, which by the way was still scary, like insert photo here, I would not want to be visited by that bro in the middle of the night. But that was only because I was trying to be flexible and accommodating. Antonyms for the word stubborn, if you will. So that the girl working out the front was as comfortable as possible and everyone was able to make the best of these nightmarish conditions. He then was like, take a break, take some time. I think you need it. So then I called my mom and explained the situation and she said, get the hell out of there. And then I called my dad and explained the situation and he said, get the hell out of there. And then I spoke to some of my friends who were on break and they said, get the hell out of here. So you could say there was a pretty clear general consensus. Then when I said that I was going to head home, the husband of the head of the company, because the head of the company had decided to leave and go to Adelaide on the final day, weird side note, I don't know what that was all about. He decided to confront me and said, I just want you to know that he didn't say that. Obviously I knew what he was talking about, but if the ex-clown didn't say what the manager's husband said he didn't, then how would the manager's husband know to dispute it? There are a lot of double negatives in that sentence. That's a complicated train of thought, but just try to hop on it. I mean, I of course played dumb and was like, didn't say what? And he was like, he didn't say that you weren't working hard enough. And I said, actually, that's exactly what he said. He word for word said that everyone else was working harder than me. To which I was met with a the straight white male authority figure patronizing laugh. Like, I'd literally you rather slap me in the face like every customer who's gone through the house than give me the patronizing laugh. He was like, no, you must have heard him wrong. His English is terrible. And I was like, actually no. I clarified to make sure, and then we continued to have a conversation about it. It wasn't just one comment that could have been misinterpreted. To which he said, well, I'm sorry you think that. Guess we're gonna have to replace you. And then I got my stuff and left. What a horrendous note to end on. There is no part of this experience that wasn't cursed. And it's such a shame because run properly, that job could be so fun. With more staff, humane hours, proper training, safety precautions in place, different managers, someone with a moral compass, this could have been a blast. But this very much wasn't the case. Honestly, the only thing that kept me there were the people. Everyone I met is amazing, and I hope we all hang out soon, hit me up. But apart from that, what a god-awful nightmare of an experience. I don't know when I'll recover. Like physically or otherwise, insert photo of my bruise here. So was I technically fired from a haunted house? I guess no. I was just asked to leave with a few hours to go and told to work at a completely different, unrelated section. So I guess this kind of was clickbait, but I was also clearly clickbaited when I signed up for this job, so I guess we're even. Actually no, endure severe mental and physical trauma, and then we're even. $2,000 for 2 weeks of traumatizing work, 13 hours a day, public holidays, weekend pay, overtime, $2,000. I can't. And I guess that's all I have for you. Thank you so much for watching this horrific traumatic tale. If you enjoyed listening to me wallow and complain, then please thumbs up and subscribe. And if you didn't, then just do it anyway because I've been through a lot. And I'll see you next time. Thank you so much for watching. Bye! I guess the moral of the story is listen to Nova 969.